Astrid, I'm really excited to talk to you today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me. I am half German, half Spanish. I lived in 7 countries, 3 continents. I am an investment banker by training. Spent over 25 years in investment banking on all 3 sides, on asset management, marketing of funds, and broking equities and the stock markets. And I now run a fintech, which I created. It's my second fintech. I started in 2016 with the first fintech, which was a benefits company. I live in Brazil at the moment, and the benefits companies are a very big part of the financial system. You get food vouchers by the syndicate, so every employee gets food vouchers and restaurant vouchers. And we launched basically in 2016 the first digital version of that, which was very disruptive because the whole system was rigged towards 3 main players that were abusing the small restaurants and the small stores and helping the big companies getting kickbacks and all that in an awful way that we just thought was not just. And so we basically decided to start a digital version of that. I went to Brazil and managed to get the approval, the first ever approval for a digital version. Took me 1.5 years almost, and doing it all based on technology, based on proving how this can work and how the rest of the world is progressing in this area. Finally, the Ministry of Labor gave in and gave us the approval. So that was a big start into the fintech world, creating our own software and using it for financial purposes. I then split from that company once the central bank opened a new type of financial institution in Brazil, which was a very courageous forward move. They created the payment companies, so you didn't have to be a full-fledged bank in order to have a system that offers bank accounts digitally. So that opened that path. And since I'm a banker by background, I could become a payment company, and my partner in the first company couldn't, and he was the main majority shareholder in the first one. So we split, and he kept the benefits business, and I opened the direct, finance business, so we can open bank accounts for anybody. And we chose to do that for the underbanked, those that have not necessarily access to the financial system for many reasons, or they live in very remote places. And now with the advent, of course, with very high penetration of internet and also smartphones, especially in these areas, we have, of course, a new market that we can assist and serve with something very powerful that is very impactful for them in so many ways, and life-changing and amazingly exciting for us.
Incredible, Astrid. I love, and it sounds like you're a real disruptor. Now, tell us a tiny bit more about the latest fintech company. So that's like a mobile app, a banking app, where the unbankable are able to pay money in, save money. So give us a little bit more details of all the functionality.
Yeah, so it's called Oro, like the Spanish word for gold, but I live in Brazil, so it's actually something similar to the Brazilian version, which is Ouro, O-U-R-O, but we write it O-R-O because it's nicer. So Oro is our company's name, and Oro Pay is our payments app. It's actually it's a bank account. We can't call it a bank account because we're not a bank, but we're a financial services company that has a digital wallet that gives you the chance to keep your money safe. That's the biggest thing, for the people who live in the Amazon, along the rivers of the Amazon, which is a community that I really care about, and I traveled a lot of time there and know them intimately, and also people like refugees or from Venezuela and the northern part of Brazil, also in the Amazon, which we service, and have a very difficult infrastructure and difficult access, and they have they don't have postpaid phones, so they need to recharge their phone. So in our system, you can recharge your phone directly on the app. So if somebody gives you money, in this case for the Venezuelan refugees, there's a fantastic NGO called World Vision International that is a global one of the 10 largest NGOs around the world, and we are an official supplier for them So we gave all the refugees auto pay, and they gave them the benefit. Basically, they gave them the payment. So the payment comes direct and it's immediate. Nobody has to dislocate themselves. So for the NGO, it's fantastic. You know, that it changes completely the entire process of getting money to people. Before, you had to actually take a bundle of money from one place, put it in a van, drive in horrendous conditions to some horrendous place full of insecurity, and getting to people who then have to dislocate themselves on foot or somehow to get there, and then get a bunch of money. Everybody knows it in a small city, and then they lose the money. I mean, it's the easiest thing to be robbed that way, right? So the simplest way of just being able to keep your money, getting it directly without anybody interfering and nobody knowing, keeping it safe, and also not keeping, most people that live in houses without windows or without doors, they have just a few bricks, so there's no security whatsoever. So this kind of very basic functionality is very important. And so they can recharge their phone. With the recharge of their phone, they can communicate, they can help each other, they can work, they can do all these things that we take for granted, and they can pay. You know, they can make payments. In Brazil, the central bank did something fantastic. They created a new payment system called PIX, P-I-X. It's a total new liquidation chamber, totally separate from the banking system. The banks were forced to apply, basically participate, because that basically gave the competition to the 5 banks that control the whole country. And we, you know, you have to have a wallet. So we integrated this system into our wallet, and anybody can go into a store now with a QR code, pay anything, or pay his neighbor, or pay somebody else, or receive money. So this kind of money flows coming in, coming out, all of a sudden gives them a very powerful tool. You know, and for other than that, they feel so proud that they finally are part of the financial system. So now you can, you know, start having also a record and you know what you're doing. And we, as a company, give them financial education through the way we set up our digital wallets. So they can separate within the digital wallet the money they need for their working capital, the money they need for their they want to save in order to basically buy something in the future instead of borrowing somewhere and paying 3 or 4 times for the same. They have a gateway where they can receive payments that somebody else makes to them with credit cards, and they can go and make payments. You know, they can then put money on their own current account that they know that they earned, you know, that they actually made to spend. So this kind of financial education with practical use is what we care most about and what we do.
Amazing, Astrid. So you teach them financial literacy, you give them budgeting tools. Do they get a card with it as well?
Yes, we have a license with MasterCard, so you also get a physical MasterCard with our Oro brand. And that MasterCard you can put into cash machines and get money out. It's even internationally, worldwide, you can, with a 0 symbol, can get money out. I mean, we don't sell to anybody abroad, but you know, it's the worldwide MasterCard network, as well as the worldwide cash machines. In Brazil, they're called Banco 24 Horas. So there's specific cash machine network that lets you take money out and deposit. That's a new story now. In these, some of the cash machines, you can go and deposit. It's only 10% of the machine so far, but that makes a big difference, because if they get payments in money, if they are in remote places, they have to queue up somewhere and issue what we call boleto from our system, which is fine, but they have to queue up and give somebody the money to put it in. And that's cumbersome and so on. So they can do that also with these cash machines.
Amazing, Astrid. I am so bowled over by this incredible company you set up. Tell us, what are your main motivators, Astrid? What really gets you going and gets you up every morning to do this, which is a disruptive field in Brazil, and one of the first ones, or the first one. I've heard of companies like that in Africa before, but tell us more.
I mean, yes. I mean, the thing what drives me is, I mean, anger. Anger of seeing people being abused, you know, this sort of financial slavery that I spot everywhere. It just so goes, it's so against my grain. It's interesting. Yesterday, I listened to a very, very interesting interview with George Clooney and his wife, Amal Clooney. And I didn't know that, you know, I knew Amal is a civil rights activist and so on, but they have a foundation, and they've been working for many years. And they both said, you know, the driving factor underneath for all the stuff they do, instead of, is anger. And I always think about it, it's the same thing here. I get angry when I see people paying 11.6% on a transaction that you should be able to do for free or for a tiny amount, but that's taking this from the one person that's doing a resale of something like Emmerich or whatever, and then use a like a payment link, or like there's gateways of an acquirer, sorry about this, an acquirer who basically just takes 11.6% because they can, because this one person has no clue what is the right amount. She needs to get the money paid. She sees an absolute amount. She doesn't understand percentages, and there's no justification for that. And the worst thing is, the more you talk about, talk to people within the financial system that is there, they do it with a glee in their eyes. When you ask them, why are you charging a 26% interest, on a loan, or even more? No, they're more. They're like a 7% a month interest rate on a loan to the, underprivileged. And then this guy says, from this very famous company, says, well, because they don't complain. This kind of attitude, this goes in from my gut, and somebody has to do something. There's no point in beating up this guy from the CEO of this company, because unfortunately, when people actually do take on the service, they keep going. What we have to do is do it from bottom up. We have to go and be on the side alongside these people that I care about, and open their eyes and let them choose something else, so they don't have to beat the other one. They can just not use the service, So that's what's driving me. So my big mission is, I want to make price takers price makers. That's my big story. This is like the overall mission. It may take me 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I don't have 50 years left, but hopefully somebody will pick up on, after I'm done. But that's what it is. We need to change the structure. You need to have a market that makes the price, not somebody imposing what they want onto somebody who needs to take it. That's the driver.
Yeah, I get it. Price takers become price makers. Yeah, that's. Now, explain to us a little better, Astrid, how you make money as a company.
That's a tricky bit. At the moment, we're just investing heavily, but the thing is, we built our own system, our own software. So the nice thing is we have autonomy now. And so what we can do is we can't get easily to the end user on a scale. For that, you would need literally hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion or more. Most of the competitors that have reached this kind of reach, of 20, 30, 40 million users, which there are a few, they all put more than $1 billion into marketing. So that's also the kind of thing we don't want. We don't want to just be everywhere. So we need to work through a more cleverer way of getting to the end user. So what do? We work with businesses. So we are B2B2C business. So we go business to business, and then they have the end user. And depending who they are, we then also can, give financial education to the end user, or do our bits, our magic here, if that B2B customer allows it. So a perfect example is World Vision. They're exactly the kind of clients we want. They are our business client. So we have a contract with them. They pay a license fee for each user using our system. They pay a processing fee. They pay the server fee. They pay for people using. They pay for the cards. They pay for the delivery. So they pay for the access to our system directly to us. The end user doesn't pay anything. We do make interchange fees on MasterCard, like every bank. They're very low, and we have to pay high license fees and so on. But there is this very small amount here. So the more volume, on larger, per small transaction is expensive. But if the transaction get bigger over time, with scale, we can basically also have that as a revenue source. So that's the general revenue source today. So we have license agreements, software, it's SLA, software license agreements, where we get revenues. In the future, as we build out our network, and as we can also, as we know exactly which community wants which, is engaged with us, and we can then, in a very careful and very what's the right word, in a very responsible way, also sell that data to advertisers, the typical model of any technology company, but not in a way that, you know, anybody gets bombarded with any information that they shouldn't have. But we can then curate the types of access we can give to, you know, certain service providers and product sellers, you know, manufacturers, for that type of community, because they need everything still. You know, we're talking a pent-up demand of consumers on a massive scale. So that would of course bring, you know, a very substantial revenue source on that kind of level.
Astrid, I'm wondering, what do you think is your superpower in all of this? How are you doing it? How are you getting to where you are already now, but also have this incredible vision?
Well, it's just, you know, I lived in, as I mentioned to you, I'm German, but I lived in Europe for a while and then moved to Asia in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s. And I saw this entire change of Southeast Asia, you know, from this little shantytown country, I mean, countries with just shanty towns. And then all of a sudden you have this birth of the Southeast Asian consumer, you know, based on so many factors that most of you will know about. And to watch this power coming from bottom up, you know, of course, with some top down infrastructure, investments. So, I mean, certain things have to come from top down, but you can see that if people want to have a change, and if they have the tools in their hands and they are being enabled, you know, and then they do it together, all of a sudden it moves mountains, you know. So even southern China, which was impossible to imagine that would ever change, became a mini Hong Kong. You know, I used to live in Hong Kong, so I saw this entire growth happening. So for me, that was the moving thing. There's no, I don't take no for an answer. And I can, you know, whatever is the status quo today should not necessarily be a status quo tomorrow. I read a lot of autobiographies, I read a lot of biographies, I watch a lot of documentaries, and I follow, you know, the big trends of big movements. Like if you look where the United States was 50, 60 years ago, that's where Brazil is today. So it's not that long ago that this kind of scenario happened. In Germany, there were 14 million slave workers not long ago, like 80 years ago. So, you know, you have a lot of, you know, parallels you can see where, you know, that if you do something that gives people the tools and you actually make it all positive and you make it in such a way that they themselves have to do something to get there, not depend on somebody else doing it. You make them independent, and you try and get the productive assets into their hands to make them understand that they should be the owner of the productive asset. Then all of a sudden you can see big changes. So what is my secret sauce? It's just, you know, not taking no for an answer, knowing that has been done in other places and trying to find the route and the way through. In Brazil, it's very hard. It is a very much, I keep getting blockers. I keep bumping against very, very substantial, you know, structural and personal and all sorts of other barriers. And that gives me, again, that makes me more angry and gives me more energy, you know. So I'm finding my way. I've managed to collect a fantastic group of investors and fantastic group of workers and fantastic group of clients that actually come into they have the same vibes and the same kind of wish of seeing this kind of change happen. And, you know, more and more coming together, then we can do without being, you know, we want to be positive. We never want to be in any scenario negative, on any information, with anybody. You know, we just want to be there and just make it in such a way that people choose it. And with that, you know, the change happens, you know, over time.
Well, to empower people to choose as consumers, right?
Yeah, just be aware, you know, and just make it fun. I want people to enjoy money. You know, and money in Brazil is such an awful thing. It's only ever negative for people. They completely, you know, they feel handshackled from the moment they're born. And the lack, the ignorance of not knowing how to calculate percentages and simple math, you know, simple understanding, what do you compare with whom, how you compare. Even in the supermarket, you know, every product says it's a discount. Every single thing is new, and it's all lies, you know. It's just, people don't know how to compare, you know, a bigger package with a smaller package. They don't look for the information. So this kind of simple things because the people we talk about are very intelligent people and they're very productive in what they do. They just can't get out of the rut, because of the lack of knowing and lack of getting access to this kind of information and having somebody explain in a simple way. So that's what we want to do. So yeah, so I'm here and I'm not going to give up. I don't care how often I bang my head against a lot of, structure, as I said, is very much top down. I tell you what you can buy, I tell you what you're going to pay. Zero negotiation, zero, transparency on why, what's the rationale. And, so this is the kind of battle I have. But as I said, there were other countries that have been like that not long ago, and they've managed to. Richard Branson is a great example. I read his autobiography 30 years ago. That was my big inspiration, the Losing My Virginity, how he switched, he did the flip in the UK as well. I mean, there were so many institutions as well, say even the banks took 5 days to clear a check. Really? Why? Are you taking a donkey to take a piece of paper from one place to another? Why did it take, and he put a lot of pressure on so many other systems as well, that people started wondering, hang on a minute, I don't have to take this. I can just wait and buy something from a competitor that is different. And this kind of mentality, we've seen it work in other countries and we should have it here.
Absolutely. Astrid, I'm wondering if entrepreneurs and innovators and visionaries are sort of a little bit deaf at times, when you don't hear the naysayers quite as much and it fuels you rather than getting you down. So would you say that applies to you?
Totally, 100%. You said it very well.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Astrid, I'm wondering, what would your top tips be for other women?
Well, I'm going to quote something that I've heard now twice, on my favorite podcast channel. I don't know whether you know the Tim Ferriss podcast, but they're my favorite. And anybody who listens to your podcast, please look out for Tim Ferriss. They are so in-depth, so interesting, and so you learn something every single time. And anyway, so twice some of these big leaders have mentioned a quote from Steve Martin. Steve Martin said, you have to be so good that they can't ignore you. And that's my message to everybody. Being a woman or a man or a young or old or whatever, it doesn't matter. You just have to be so good that you can't be ignored.
Incredible. I love that. Thank you for saying that. It's very inspirational. Astrid, what are your plans or dreams for your future, for your fintech company? What is in store for you?
Well, my big dream is to really make this flip happen, this making price takers to become price makers. And that implies that you have to have a market, a bit like the stock market. I used to love the dynamic of the stock market where everybody can participate. It's there. You have some market makers, and then you've got a quote, and then market makers have to give you a quote. They don't have to give you the price, but they have to make a price. They have to make a price, not give you that price. So everybody it's a fair playing game. You put your order in, you want to buy it, you meet in the middle, and you pay your little brokerage fee, and off you go and get settled. So this kind of platforms, my big dream is to have enough traction with everything I'm doing now that maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we can actually build a proper exchange, proper algorithmic trading platform where we can let these orders and the buyers meet and add the logistics to it, because logistics is a huge problem in Brazil. So, for example, an acai producer in the Amazon that lives along these rivers has to sit today. They wait and they take the acai from the palm tree. It's in a basket, and then they wait for some intermediary maybe pass by with a boat and maybe give them some money that they decide the price is right, what the price is for that basket today. And the person gets a bunch of money in their hand and have no clue whether somebody else, what the price is for the actual product. They just have to take what somebody gives them because somebody happens to go, so they have zero, this kind of letting them use our auto pay to put in. I've got 5 baskets of acai, that will be ready at that moment. And then let logistics company take intelligence and come up with some kind of a way of joining this up to make it efficient and already knowing where they're going to deliver this to, because industries already said they want to buy it. So you basically make it all, you let both sides be completely anonymous, so nobody can influence nothing, and you let the market make the price. So that's my big dream, you know, but this is a big investment, but we're getting to know the communities and the players and everything else, and connecting them all with AutoPay at the moment is already the first, you know, fantastic step forward. And that would lead to that, you know.
I love it. Astrid, thank you so much for telling your story for SheCan today. It's been very inspirational, and let's watch this space.
Thank you so much for having me.